March 17, 1943. 0300 hours, North Atlantic. Kapitän-Leutnant Werner Henke stood in the conning tower of U-515, his Zeiss binoculars tracking the silhouettes of 43 merchant ships crawling across the moonlit Atlantic. The convoy SC-122, southbound from Halifax, stretched across 10 miles of ocean. Oil tankers, cargo vessels, troop ships, all moving at the speed of the slowest vessel, perhaps 8 knots. Like shooting fish in a barrel, Henke muttered to his watch officer, Oberleutnant Hans Fiedler. Around them, the wolf pack, 11 U-boats from Gruppe Raubgraf, circled their prey like sharks drawn to blood. In the operations room below, Funkmart Josef Schröder monitored hydrophones that detected nothing but the rhythmic thrum of merchant engines. No destroyers racing to intercept. No depth charges arcing through the darkness. The escort screen, just 4 corvettes and 2 destroyers for 43 ships, was laughably inadequate. What Henke couldn't know, what none of the German submariners circling in the darkness could imagine, was that 2,000 feet above them, invisible in the night sky, a 4-engine Liberator bomber was tracking every U-boat in the wolf pack. Its radar, a device the Germans believed was too large and power-hungry to fit in an aircraft, was painting returns from their conning towers with crystal clarity. The hunter had become the prey. Within 72 hours, Gruppe Raubgraf would cease to exist. Within 18 months, the Kriegsmarine would lose more U-boats in a single month than they could build in 3. The weapon that accomplished this wouldn't be superior seamanship or braver sailors. It would be a magnetron cavity no bigger than a fist, producing microwave radiation at 10 centimeters, a wavelength the Germans couldn't detect, couldn't jam, and by the time they understood it, couldn't counter. The Battle of the Atlantic would be won not by depth charges or destroyers, but by physics and mass production. And on this March night in 1943, as Henke prepared to send another convoy to the bottom, he was standing at the precise moment when German confidence would give way to technological annihilation. January 1943. U-boat headquarters, Lorient, France. Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz reviewed the statistics with quiet satisfaction. In 1942, his U-boats had sunk 1,160 Allied ships, totaling 6.2 million tons. The mathematics were irrefutable. If they could maintain this rate, they would strangle Britain within months. American shipbuilding, while impressive, couldn't replace losses fast enough. The numbers told a story of inevitable victory. Germany had 212 operational U-boats in January 1943, with 181 more in training and construction. Each boat averaged 2.3 patrols per year. Each patrol sank an average of 2.7 ships. The equation was simple. More U-boats meant more sinkings. More sinkings meant British starvation. And British starvation meant German victory. Korvettenkapitän Adalbert Schnee, holder of the Knight's Cross with oak leaves and one of Germany's top aces with 31 ships sunk, expressed the confidence all U-boat commanders felt. The British convoy system is obsolete. They group targets together for our convenience. Their escorts are slow, poorly equipped and spread too thin. We can surface at night, select our targets like choosing apples from a tree, and submerge before their destroyers even know we're there. The German submariners had reason for their confidence. Since 1939, they had developed tactics that seemed unstoppable. The Wolfpack concept, Rudeltaktik, concentrated multiple U-boats against single convoys, overwhelming escort screens through sheer numbers. The Type 7 U-boat, Germany's workhorse, could dive to 750 feet, deeper than Allied depth charges were typically set. Acoustic torpedoes homed on propeller noise, and most critically, U-boats operated on the surface at night, where their low profile made them virtually invisible to Allied lookouts. British radar, the Germans knew, operated at 1.5 metres wavelength. The U-boat's METOX receivers could detect this radar from beyond its effective range, giving submariners ample warning to dive. Even if aircraft approached, the U-boat's 6-second dive time meant they could disappear before bombs fell. Oberleutnant zur See Herbert Werner, serving aboard U-230, recorded in his diary on February 3, 1943, "Attacked convoy on 166 last night. 7 ships sinking, columns of smoke visible for 50 miles. Our boat was never detected. The British are helpless against night surface attacks. This war is already won. It's just a matter of time before Churchill admits it." The statistics seem to prove Werner right. In the first 20 days of March 1943, U-boats would sink 108 Allied ships, totalling 697,000 tons. It was the highest monthly total of the entire war. The U-boat arm was achieving peak effectiveness, but in Britain and America, scientists and engineers were preparing to deploy a technology that would transform the Battle of the Atlantic overnight. Its existence was so closely guarded that even most Allied naval officers didn't know about it. The Germans, despite their excellent intelligence services, had no idea it existed. October 1940, Tizard Mission, Washington, D.C. Sir Henry Tizard opened a small metal box in a secure room at the National Academy of Sciences. Inside, cushioned in foam, sat an object the size of a man's fist, a cavity magnetron capable of generating microwave radiation at unprecedented power levels. The American scientists present, representatives from MIT, Bell Labs, and the Naval Research Laboratory, stared at the device in disbelief. Dr. Alfred Loomis, who would become the civilian coordinator of radar research, later wrote, "In 30 seconds, Tizard gave us the keys to a technology we wouldn't have developed independently for 5 years. The power output was beyond anything we'd achieved. The wavelength was revolutionary. The cavity magnetron, developed at Birmingham University by John Randall and Harry Boot, could generate 10 kilowatt pulses at 10 centimetre wavelength. This was transformative for 3 reasons German engineers would come to understand too late. First, the short wavelength meant smaller antennas. Meter wave radar required massive aerial arrays. Centimetre radar could use dish antennas small enough to mount in aircraft. The ASV Mark III, air-to-surface vessel radar being developed, could fit in a bomber's nose, scanning the ocean while the aircraft cruised at altitude. Second, the resolution was extraordinary. 10-centimetre radar could detect a submarine's conning tower, just 16 square feet of surface area, at ranges up to 15 miles. It could differentiate a U-boat from sea clutter, something meter-wave radar could never achieve. Third, and most devastatingly, the Germans had no receivers capable of detecting it. Their METOX equipment operated at meter wavelengths. A U-boat could be tracked by centimetre radar without the crew having any indication they'd been detected. By February 1943, the MIT Radiation Laboratory employed 4,000 scientists and engineers working in a former car dealership in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They were producing cavity magnetrons faster than Germany produced entire radar sets. Western Electric had begun mass production, 100 magnetrons per week in January 1943, 500 per week by March, 1,000 per week by May. The RAF's Coastal Command began receiving ASV Mark III radar in February 1943. Installation in Liberator and Sunderland aircraft proceeded rapidly. By March, 15 squadrons were operational. By April, 32. The Germans had no idea. Wing Commander Humphrey de Verde Lee, who developed the Lee light for illuminating submarines at night, understood the implications immediately when briefed on the new radar. With meter-wave radar, we found perhaps one U-boat per 20 sorties. With Mark III, we're finding them on nearly every patrol. And the submarines have no warning. They're surfaced, relaxed, believing themselves invisible. We're achieving complete tactical surprise. The Americans were simultaneously developing their own version, the SCR-5117, with similar capabilities. By spring 1943, US Navy Liberators operating from Newfoundland, Iceland and Britain were being equipped as fast as technicians could install the systems. The production statistics tell the story of Allied industrial advantage. Cavity magnetrons produced 1943. January, 400 units. March, 2,000 units. June, 4,500 units. December, 12,000 units. German radar development, 1943. Total radar sets of all types produced, 5,800. Centimetre wavelength capability, 0. Knowledge of Allied centimetre radar, rumours dismissed as propaganda, until August 1943. Kapitän José Herbert Kupisch, head of German naval radar development, wrote in a February 1943 report to Dönitz, Allied claims of centimetre radar are technically implausible. The power requirements would exceed any aircraft's electrical capacity. Our calculations show such systems would require magnetrons we estimate to be 5 years from development. This is British psychological warfare, nothing more. Kupisch's dismissal was understandable. German centimetre radar research had stalled. Their magnetron development produced unstable outputs barely suitable for laboratory work. The idea that the Allies had not only solved these problems but achieved mass production seemed impossible. Dr. Wilhelm Runge, Germany's leading radar physicist, calculated in March 1943 that a centimetre wave magnetron producing the power levels rumoured in Allied propaganda would require technological breakthroughs Germany hadn't achieved. They are lying, he told Dönitz's staff. Physics doesn't change because the British will it. But physics hadn't changed. Engineering had. The Allies had achieved what German science predicted was impossible, and they'd done it through industrial methods. Massive funding, dedicated facilities, and most critically, sharing knowledge across institutions and even nations. The Manhattan Project would follow the same model. By March 1943, the weapon was deployed and operational. German U-boat commanders, supremely confident in their tactical superiority and convinced their METOX receivers made them immune to air attack, were about to discover that the war had changed. March 17, 1943. 042 hours, North Atlantic, Squadron Leader Terence Bullock's Liberator droned through the darkness at 4,000 feet, its ASV Mark III radar painting the ocean below in shades of green phosphorescence. The radar operator, Flying Officer James McDowell, watched 7 distinct contacts appear on his scope. 7 submarines, McDowell reported calmly. Bearing 095, ranges from 12 to 18 miles. They're on the surface. Bullock had been flying anti-submarine patrols for 18 months. In all that time, he'd detected exactly 3 U-boats with the old meter-wave radar, and all 3 had dived before he could attack. In the past week, flying with Mark III radar, he'd found 11 submarines. He'd attacked 7. Designating target Alpha, McDowell continued, bearing 092, range 14 miles, stationary or slow-moving. Aboard U-615, Captain Lieutenant Ralph Kapitsky was preparing to attack convoy SC-122. His boat had surfaced 30 minutes earlier to recharge batteries and gain attack position. The METOX receiver sat silent. No radar, no aircraft, no danger. Standard procedure was to remain surfaced until attacking, then dive only when depth charges forced them under. Kapitsky's watch officer, Lieutenant Werner Schmidt, scanned the horizon with night glasses. Clear skies, good visibility, no threats. Loku 615 had sunk 14 ships in previous patrols. Schmidt expected tonight to add more. Target Alpha, range 8 miles, McDowell called. We have a solid return. Bullock descended to 200 feet, throttling back to reduce engine noise. The Liberator carried 8 depth charges, each containing 250 pounds of Torpex explosive. At 4 miles, Bullock could make out U-6015's silhouette. Conning tower, deck gun, the long dark hull. The first indication Kapitsky had of danger was the roar of aircraft engines directly overhead. What happened next occurred in 6 seconds, the time German submariners believed they needed to dive safely. 0415 hours and 03 seconds. Kapitsky shouted alarm and hit the dive klaxon. The watch crew scrambled for the hatch. 041 BSM hours and 004 seconds. The diesel shut down. Electric motors engaged. Bow planes angled down. 0415 hours and 05 seconds. Bullock's Liberator was directly overhead. The Bombardier released 4 depth charges in a perfect straddle pattern. 0415 hours and 06 seconds. U-615's conning tower was submerging. Bow was down 15 degrees. Stern still fully surfaced. Omway 15 hours and 07 seconds. First depth charge hit the water 30 feet ahead of the conning tower. Whirlfall 15 hours and 08 seconds. All 4 charges detonated simultaneously at 50 feet depth. Whirlfall 15 hours and 09 seconds. The pressure hull of U-615 ruptured in 3 places. Obermaschinist Hans Keller, in the engine room, felt the boat whip like a toy. He later testified to British interrogators. The lights went out. Water came in everywhere, not leaking, but flooding, like opening a fire hose. The boat was still diving, but now at a 40-degree angle. I knew we were dead. U-615 plunged to 800 feet before the internal pressure equalized. 46 men died. 3 survived, blown free when the conning tower collapsed. Kapitsky was one of the survivors. Hauled aboard a British destroyer 3 hours later, he was incoherent with shock. No warning, he kept repeating. METOX showed nothing. They appeared from nowhere. How? How? March 18th, 1943. U-boat headquarters, Lorient. The loss of U-615 was concerning, but not alarming. Donitz's staff logged it as aircraft attack, circumstances unclear. But over the next 72 hours, the reports accelerated. March 18th, U-3A4 attacked by aircraft, severely damaged, forced to abort patrol. U-469 sunk by aircraft, no survivors. U-530 attacked, survived, but depth charge damage required dockyard repairs. March 19th, UA-665 sunk by aircraft. U-633 reported being tracked by aircraft for 2 hours before escaping into fog. U-441 attacked, damaged. March 20th, U-527 sunk, 3 survivors recovered. U-boats ordered to avoid Bay of Biscay transit routes pending investigation. The survivors' testimony was uniform and disturbing. No radar warning, aircraft appearing from nowhere. Attacks occurring at night in conditions where visual detection should have been impossible. Korvettenkapitan Günther Hessler, Dönitz's son-in-law and operational analyst, compiled the reports. His March 21st memorandum to Dönitz revealed growing alarm. In the past 96 hours, we have lost 6 U-boats to aircraft attack. All attacks occurred at night, all boats report their METOX receivers showed no radar activity. Either 1. The British have developed radar we cannot detect, or 2. Our METOX equipment is defective, or 3. Crews are becoming negligent about maintaining surface watch. Option 3 seems unlikely. These are experienced commanders. Option 2 is being investigated. Option 1 was previously dismissed as technically impossible, but the evidence demands reconsideration. Dunitz ordered immediate investigation. METOX receivers were tested. They worked perfectly at detecting meter-wave radar. Scientists were consulted. Could the British have developed centimetre radar? Dr. Wilhelm Runge was categorical. Impossible. We would know. Our intelligence services monitor British technical journals. We interrogate prisoners. We have agents in Britain. Such a development couldn't be hidden. Moreover, the technical challenges are immense. I estimate it would require 5 years minimum from theoretical breakthrough to operational deployment. What Runge didn't know was that the Tissad mission had occurred in October 1940, 30 months earlier. What seemed impossible to German science had been solved by British innovation and American mass production. By the end of March 1943, the statistics told a story that shattered German confidence. U-boats lost in March 1943, 15. 2 aircraft, 9. 2 surface ships, 4. 2 unknown causes, probably aircraft. 2 Allied ships sunk in March 1943, 1 to 8. The ratio was shifting. In February 1943, Germany had sunk 63 Allied ships while losing 19 U-boats, a 3.3 to 1 exchange rate. In March, despite sinking 108 ships, they'd lost 15 boats, a 7.2 to 1 ratio, but the losses were accelerating toward month's end. More ominously, the April statistics would show total collapse. Kapitän-Leutnant Peter Kremer, commanding U-333, survived an attack on March 29th that he later described as encountering the supernatural. We surfaced at 2200 hours under a moonless, overcast sky. Visibility was perhaps 500 metres. The METOX showed nothing. We were recharging batteries, maintaining watch with 4 men in the tower, plus myself. At 22:47, my port lookout shouted aircraft. I saw navigation lights perhaps 2 kilometres away, altitude maybe 300 metres, closing rapidly. I sounded the alarm. We had 6 seconds to dive. We'd practiced this 1,000 times. But the aircraft was already overhead. I was last down the hatch, pulling it closed as I descended. I heard the whistle of falling bombs, then impacts. I reached the control room just as the first detonation occurred. The boat jumped sideways. A pipe burst, spraying oil. We lost the stern planes, but we survived and escaped at depth. What haunts me is the impossibility. The aircraft appeared exactly when we surfaced. It was positioned perfectly for attack. In conditions where visual acquisition would be impossible beyond 500 metres, it was overhead within minutes. They were tracking us. But our METOX showed nothing. Kremer's testimony matched dozens of others. The British weren't getting lucky. They were tracking surfaced U-boats with radar the Germans couldn't detect. April 1943. The collapse accelerates. April U-boat losses 15. May U-boat losses 41. 41 U-boats in a single month. The number was catastrophic. German shipyards were producing 18 boats monthly. For the first time in the war, losses exceeded production. Korvettenkapitän Peter Ali Kremer, no relation to Peter Kremer of U-333, one of Germany's most successful commanders, wrote in his war diary on May 18th, "The ocean has become a death trap. We surface to recharge batteries. Aircraft appear within minutes. We try to transit at periscope depth. Corvettes find us with their Aztec. We remain submerged on batteries. We can only make 4 knots, and our range is 40 miles before we must surface again. The British have solved submarine warfare. I don't know how, but they've done it. Every U-boat at sea is now operating on borrowed time. The casualty rate told the story. In May 1943, 41 U-boats were lost with approximately 2,000 submariners, a loss rate exceeding 30% of boats at sea. No military force can sustain such casualties. On May 24, 1943, Gross Admiral Dönitz made the most painful decision of his naval career. He ordered U-boats withdrawn from the North Atlantic. The wolf packs were disbanded. The submarine campaign that was supposed to starve Britain into surrender had been defeated. His order to all U-boats read, "The situation in the North Atlantic has become untenable due to Allied technological superiority in detection equipment. All boats are to withdraw to defensive positions." Further orders to follow. In his war diary, Dönitz was more candid. "We have lost the Battle of the Atlantic. The enemy possesses detection equipment against which we have no countermeasure. Until we develop equivalent technology, submarine operations in the Atlantic are suicide missions." June 1943. U-boat bunker, Lorient. Captain Lieutenant Herbert Werner stood before the intelligence briefing with 50 other U-boat commanders. The room was silent as the technical officer explained what German scientists had finally discovered. "The British and Americans have deployed centimetre wavelength radar," Captain Zur C. Herbert Kupisch began. "The wavelength is approximately 10 centimetres. Our Metox receivers cannot detect it. The radar is small enough to fit in patrol aircraft. Its resolution can detect a surfaced U-boat at ranges up to 25 kilometres." Werner felt his stomach drop. The technical implications were crushing. "How long have they had this?" someone asked. "We believe since February or March," Kupisch replied. "Possibly earlier. Our intelligence failed to detect the development. Can we build receivers to detect it?" asked Korvettenkapitän Adalbert Schnee. "We are developing the Naxos receiver. It should be operational in 4 to 6 months. And in the meantime, Kupisch had no answer. The captured cavity magnetron, taken from a crashed British bomber in Rotterdam in February 1943, sat in a German laboratory where scientists examined it with something approaching awe. Dr. Hans-Erich Hollmann, Germany's radar expert, submitted a report that was devastating in its honesty. The British device represents a technological leap we cannot match with current resources. The cavity magnetron generates 10 kilowatt pulses at 10 centimetre wavelength. Our best experimental magnetrons produce 0.5 kilowatts unstably. To duplicate this device would require complete redesign of our magnetron research program, new production facilities, specialized materials we currently lack, estimated time to operational deployment, 18 to 24 months minimum. Moreover, even if we develop equivalent radar, we face a larger problem. The Allies have deployed this technology in quantity. Intelligence suggests hundreds of aircraft are now equipped. This indicates mass production capability we cannot match. The captured magnetron told the story of Allied industrial and scientific superiority. Weight 2.1 pounds. Power output 10 kilowatts pulsed. Production Western Electric Manufacturing 1,000 units weekly by May 1943. Cost $150 per unit in mass production. German equivalent experimental only. Weight 12 pounds. Power output 500 watts unstable. Production laboratory prototypes only. Cost, incalculable, no production capability. The quality of Allied manufacturing shocked German engineers. The cavity magnetron was machined to tolerances of 0.01 inches. Every unit was functionally identical. True mass production. German radar equipment was still largely hand-built by skilled technicians, each unit slightly different. Hollmann's final paragraph in his technical report was copied and distributed throughout German Naval Command. We are not losing to better tactics or braver enemies. We are losing to superior industrial organization. The Allies have achieved seamless integration of scientific research, engineering development, and mass production. We pursue the same goals through disconnected efforts. They produce thousands, we produce dozens. This gap is unbridgeable under current circumstances. Summer 1943. Desperate measures. Unable to counter Allied radar, Dönitz implemented defensive changes, increased anti-aircraft armament. U-boats were fitted with additional 20mm and 37mm flak guns. The theory was that if they couldn't dive quickly enough, they'd fight on the surface. This proved disastrous. Aircraft simply attacked from higher altitude or used rockets beyond flak range. Acoustic torpedoes. The T-5 Zaunkönig, Wren, homed on propeller noise, targeting escorts. These achieved limited success until the Allies deployed Foxer noisemakers, simple towed devices that produced louder sounds than propellers, decoying the torpedoes harmlessly away. Schnorkel devices, retractable air pipes, allowing diesel operation while submerged. These reduced surfacing time, but also reduced speed to 6 knots and produced visible wakes. Allied aircraft hunted schnorkel wakes with the same radar that found surface boats. Naxos radar detectors. Finally deployed in October 1943, these could detect centimetre radar. But by then, Allied aircraft were so numerous that detecting radar simply confirmed what U-boat crews already knew. They were being hunted. Having warning didn't help when there was nowhere to hide. The statistics from summer and fall 1943 showed that German countermeasures were failing. June 1943, 17 U-boats lost. July 1943, 37 U-boats lost. August 1943, 25 U-boats lost. September 1943, 9 U-boats lost. Operations severely curtailed. October 1943, 26 U-boats lost. Oberleutnant Herbert Werner, now commanding U-415, recorded in his diary on August 12, 1943. We installed Naxos last week. Today it detected radar continuously from 0800 to 1600. 8 hours of constant radar illumination. We know we're being tracked. We know aircraft are hunting us. But we must surface to recharge batteries, or we die anyway. The Naxos tells us we're about to be attacked, but gives us no solution. It's like being diagnosed with a terminal disease. The knowledge changes nothing. The Allied deployment continued accelerating. ASV Mark III equipped aircraft, August 1943. RAF Coastal Command, 178 aircraft. US Navy Patrol Squadrons, 97 aircraft. RCRF Maritime Patrol, 43 aircraft. Total, 318 aircraft. Coverage achieved. Iceland to UK gap, continuous radar coverage. Mid-Atlantic gap, closing rapidly with escort carriers. Bay of Biscay, complete surveillance. The Mid-Atlantic gap, the area beyond land-based aircraft range where U-boats had previously operated freely, was being closed by escort carriers. These small aircraft carriers converted from merchant hulls carried Avenger torpedo bombers equipped with ASV radar. By September 1943, U-boats had no sanctuary. Korvettenkapitän Peter Kremer, after his third near-miss with Allied aircraft in August 1943, wrote a letter to Dönitz that was brutally honest. Herr Großadmiral, I must report that continued U-boat operations under current circumstances constitute pointless sacrifice of trained crews. In my last patrol, Day 4, detected and depth charge by destroyer, escaped damaged. Day 7, detected by aircraft while surfaced at night, survived attack but lost pressure hull integrity. Day 9, detected by aircraft while snorkeling, attacked with rockets, survived. Day 11, forced to abort patrol, never reached attack position. We detected enemy radar 27 times in 11 days. We were attacked 8 times. We achieved 0 attacks on enemy shipping. This is the reality of U-boat operations in August 1943. I await your orders, but respectfully submit that we are currently incapable of affecting the Allied convoy system. We are merely providing target practice for their anti-submarine forces. Dönitz did not reprimand Crémier for defeatism. He forwarded the letter to Hitler with his own note. This officer's experience is typical. Until we develop technological countermeasures, U-boat operations cannot achieve strategic objectives. The statistics of U-boat losses in 1943 represent one of the highest casualty rates of any military force in World War II. U-boats commissioned 1943, 272. U-boats lost 1943, 244. Percentage lost, 89.7%. Personnel, total U-boat crew strength 1943, approximately 40,000 men. Killed in action 1943, approximately 8,000. Casualty rate 20% annually. But the 1943 figures mask worse statistics from 1944 to 1945. Of the 39,000 men who served in U-boats during the entire war, 28,000 died, a 72% fatality rate. This exceeded the death rate of any other military branch in any nation during World War II. Oberleutnant Zursee Wolfgang Hirschfeld, radio man aboard U-109, kept a detailed diary throughout 1943. His entries chart the psychological deterioration of U-boat crews. March 15, 1943. Morale excellent. We are the tip of the spear that will break Britain. Every man believes in victory. May 22, 1943. We lost 3 boats from our flotilla last week. Men are starting to ask questions no one wants to answer. August 8, 1943. Today, a new officer reported aboard. He is 20 years old. This is his first assignment. He will likely be dead within 3 months. Everyone knows this. No one speaks of it. November 3, 1943. We call ourselves the dead on leave. When we return to port, we drink until we cannot think. When we sail, we accept that we will not return. There is no longer any talk of victory, only of surviving the next patrol. The psychological burden was crushing. U-boat crew quarters at Lorient, Brest and La Rochelle were filled with men who understood statistically they were unlikely to survive. A German naval psychologist, Marinestabsarzt Dr. Hans Bauer, submitted a confidential report in September 1943. U-boat crews are exhibiting symptoms consistent with condemned prisoners. They drink excessively on shore, leave. They form no long-term relationships. Many write farewell letters before each patrol. When boats return missing men, the survivors often refuse to discuss what happened. Most concerning, experienced crew members are volunteering for reassignment to surface ships or shore duty, positions they previously scorned as safer postings for cowards. This indicates complete loss of faith in U-boat operations. Recommendation: suspend U-boat operations until technical parity with Allied detection equipment is achieved. Current operations are destroying the psychological health of our most trained submarine crews. The recommendation was ignored. Germany had no choice but to continue operations, however futile, because withdrawing U-boats completely would free Allied naval forces for other operations. How did Germany, with its excellent intelligence services, failed to detect Allied centimetre radar until it was deployed operationally. The post-war analysis revealed multiple failures, scientific blindness. German physicists correctly identified the technical challenges of centimetre radar, but incorrectly estimated the time required to solve them. They assumed British science operated at German speeds. They didn't account for Allied resource pooling. The MIT Radiation Laboratory's budget in 1943 exceeded Germany's entire radar research funding, or American industrial methods applied to scientific research. Intelligence compartmentalization. The British security surrounding cavity magnetron development was unprecedented. Work occurred at multiple dispersed sites. Scientists were forbidden from discussing research with colleagues outside their immediate teams. Technical papers were classified. German agents in Britain, and there were several, simply never encountered anyone with knowledge of the program. Cognitive bias. German scientists suffered from not invented here syndrome. When fragmentary intelligence about Allied centimetre radar reached German laboratories, researchers dismissed it. If we can't build it, they can't have built it. This assumption, while logical, was wrong. Strategic surprise through mass production. Even after Germany captured a cavity magnetron in February 1943, they failed to grasp the implications. They saw it as an experimental prototype, remarkable but not operationally significant. They didn't understand that Western Electric was producing 1,000 per week. German intelligence estimated Allied centimetre radar deployment at perhaps 20 to 30 aircraft. The actual number by mid-1943 exceeded 300. Kapitän Zusse Reinhard Hardegen, who had conducted successful U-boat operations off the American coast in early 1942, was recalled to Germany in September 1943 for consultation on anti-submarine warfare. His post-war testimony revealed the institutional failure. I was shown the captured magnetron and asked for operational input. I told them this device explained everything we'd experienced, the sudden detection, the inability of METOX to provide warning, the precision of night attacks. I asked how many Allied aircraft carried this radar. The intelligence officer said perhaps 40, maybe 60. I said, that's impossible. We're being detected constantly. There must be hundreds. He told me I was overestimating Allied production capacity based on isolated encounters. The actual number was over 400 aircraft by that point. German intelligence was wrong by a factor of 10. The institutional failure extended beyond technology. German command culture discouraged bad news. U-boat commanders who reported effective Allied radar were sometimes accused of exaggerating to excuse operational failures. Kapitänleutnant Hans-Joachim Schwantke, after reporting continuous radar detection during an August 1943 patrol, was questioned about his crew's vigilance and equipment maintenance. The implication was clear. The problem wasn't Allied technology. The problem was German performance. This culture of denial persisted until losses made it undeniable. By then, the Allies had achieved such overwhelming advantage that German countermeasures were irrelevant. The Naxos radar detector, finally deployed in October 1943, could detect Allied centimetre radar. But the detector only confirmed what crews already knew: they were being hunted. The tactical value was minimal. Knowing your track doesn't help when you must surface to recharge batteries. The ocean had become transparent to Allied eyes, and German submarines had nowhere to hide. Winter 1943 to 1944. The Atlantic becomes a graveyard. The statistics from late 1943 through 1944 documented complete Allied dominance. November 1943, 19 U-boats lost. December 1943, 8 U-boats lost. Operations severely restricted. January 1944, 14 U-boats lost. February 1944, 20 U-boats lost. March 1944, 26 U-boats lost. April 1944, 23 U-boats lost. May 1944, 24 U-boats lost. June 1944, 25 U-boats lost. The pattern was clear. Germany was losing approximately 1 U-boat per day. Production could not keep pace. More significantly, experienced crews were being killed faster than training could replace them. Fregattenkapitän Günther Hessler, Dönitz's son-in-law and chief operational analyst, compiled a devastating assessment in January 1944. U-boat effectiveness has collapsed. Average ships sunk per patrol has declined from 2.7 in 1942 to 0.3 in late 1943. Many patrols achieve 0 sinkings. Meanwhile, loss rates have increased from 8% per patrol in 1942 to 37% in late 1943. The mathematics are irrefutable. We are losing 4 U-boats for every Allied ship sunk. This exchange rate is unsustainable. Moreover, quality is declining. In 1942, average U-boat crew had 18 months training. Current crews receive 4 months before operational deployment. We are sending children to die in obsolete submarines against an enemy who can see through water. The final sentence was hyperbole, but it captured the psychological reality. Allied anti-submarine warfare had become so effective it seemed like magic to German submariners. Surface vessels detected submerged U-boats with sonar. Aircraft detected surface U-boats with radar. There was no sanctuary. By the beginning of 1944, what had once been a contest of courage was a controlled experiment in detection. Every sortie began with the same calculation: battery endurance, fuel remaining, radar horizon, and probability of survival. The arithmetic never balanced. Crews left harbour knowing the curve of loss was fixed before they cast off. The North Atlantic, once the stage for the Hunter's triumph, had turned into a proving ground for Allied electronics. Each new patrol added data points to a single conclusion. Visibility had become absolute. The ocean was now a laboratory, and the U-boats were instruments of their own measurement. For the men inside them, the war had shrunk to sound. The steady ping of sonar, the crack of pressure plates, the hammering of depth charges. Mechanical certainties replacing strategy. Faith in invisibility died by increments. Some boats never even fired a torpedo. They were destroyed still searching for targets that radar had already removed from the sea. Training manuals spoke of tactics, but there were no tactics against omniscience. By the winter of 1944, the outcome no longer required interpretation. The Atlantic was transparent, and Germany was blind. What ended the U-boat war was not a single invention, but the convergence of thousands of small ones. Each radar pulse, each factory magnetron, each operator's practiced hand on a dial. The technology that allowed humanity to hear the heartbeat of the ocean had also silenced it.